Hey, hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the basics of facility design and all the components that go into opening up your own facility or renovating your own facility. This gives a good overview and background of information regarding that. And this is a portion of the CSCS exam, which is the legal issues, facility design, and all of that. So there are those of you who are planning on taking the CSCS exam through the NSCA, this is some of this information will be on there. All right, so here are our objectives for today. You guys can read this on your PowerPoint, but we're basically going to go over the aspects of facility design, modification of an existing facility, how to assess an athlete's program's needs, what a needs analysis is, explain how design-specific facility features, and then definitely in supervision and location, access, all of that, ceiling height, stuff like that, and then explain the maintenance and cleaning needs for those various surfaces. Okay, so here is our first topic. We're going to go over our phases and objectives of designing a new facility. So first and foremost, forming a committee of professionals is the first step in planning and designing a new strength and conditioning facility. And here are the main phases when you're designing the facility. You have your pre-design phase, you have your design phase, your construction phase, and then the pre-operation phase. And all of those big major 4 phases have sub-phases to it. So the pre-design phase, you're going to be looking at a needs analysis, a feasibility study, a master plan, and you're going to hire an architect. The design phase, you're going to finalize that committee, create a blueprint. Hopefully you have your architect hired, you would hire your blueprint. Construction phase is you would follow a master plan that you've already done in the design phase. You would arrange equipment based off of flow and different areas, which we're going to go over, and then you would check construction progress. And then right before you open your new facility, you hire staff, create a cleaning schedule, assign different duties to your staff members, and create a plan for operation. Okay. I also have down here for you, I have uploaded the facility design key terms. So as we go over this, when we talk about a design phase, feasibility study, master plan, please reference here if you're not sure what those terms mean, okay? So, I'm not going to read these all to you. You all can look at them. But for example, if we want to talk about a needs analysis, this is the step in which the designers and experts collaborate and determine the needs of the athletic program. So what are your top priorities? What are your medium priorities? What are your low priorities? And people usually make your wish list. What was, if you had a facility to design that money was no option, what would you want? And then you kind of cut back from there. Well, we don't need this, we don't need that, type of thing. So you look at what your needs are and what are your goals for your specific facility. Now, some facilities focus just on strength training, where there's also some facilities that are a combination of strength, speed, agility, and you want to have a field or some turf within your facility. So it's all based off of your own needs and your goals for creating your facility. And then here are the definition of what technically is a pre-operation phase, the final steps, yada, yada. What the construction phase is, your design phase. So please look over these definitions, as this is important and will show up on your final exam. Okay, so if we pop into the pre-design phase, which is that first phase, this consists of a needs analysis, your feasibility study, and formation of your master plan. This stage also includes hiring the architect. You definitely want one with previous experience, and especially in strength and conditioning industry is preferable, since they'll kind of know the equipment of what you're talking about and different terms. So for example, what is a feasibility study? Feasibility study is, the study that considers the strengths and weaknesses, the opportunities and threats that ensures the financial investment will yield a viable and a sustainable return, right? So the different threats to the area. Are there other big strength and conditioning facilities in the area that would be your competition? Are you in the right location? Things like that. In the design phase, it's the committee's ideas come together regarding the facility structure and design elements. It's important to plan around the flow of the facility while adhering to all relevant regulation and codes, right? So there's regular codes that you have to abide by, like exits and a fire plan and all those things. Those are, state mandated and so forth. So definitely know those laws and regulations are a must. Same with, then you can focus in on the regulations of a strength and conditioning facility specifically, and you can plan around how you want your facility to flow, right? So where do you want your aerobic equipment? Where would you want your Strength and conditioning equipment. Where would you want your turf field if you had one? Agility, a stretching area, all of those types of things. Right, so in the construction phase is the period where from beginning to end keeps the project on track in relation to the deadline, must overcome as a priority. Delays must result in a loss of potential revenue and possibly a lawsuit, right? So it's really important to stick to that timeline. And if you have any, investors in this, and if they are on a certain timeline, it can get pretty intricate. So you want to make sure your construction phase stays on time. So that's why ample planning is very important. When you pre-operation phase, this is pretty much the fun stuff. For the most part, is you get to finish the interior decoration, like the painting, like signs, anything you want hung up. You get to hire your staff. Planning for staff development, right? So how are you going to develop your staff, right? You just don't want to hire them. You want them to be there with you for the long haul and, make a reputable place, right? And obviously reviews and all those things are really important, and word of mouth as it gets out. So it's really important to start from the ground floor with people you can hire that you can trust and are going to work hard for you. So planning so that opening his facility is easy, right? Plan for organization for administrative and clerical duties as well, right? So existing strength and conditioning facilities. Now, when we move to that, the strength and conditioning professional should assess existing equipment based on the needs of all athletes and teams who use the facility. So when I say assess the existing equipment, what equipment do you have? What equipment is still good? What equipment needs to be tossed or donated or, sold or something like that? And what equipment do you need in addition to that, right? So if you have really old, outdated, rusty equipment, toss it. Okay, scrap it. If you have some decent equipment, but probably not good for your facility that you want to open, then, you can always either, sell that and, get better stuff or donate it, so to speak. So you make sure you are assessing all of that. All right, so here are your steps in modifying an existing facility. Now we've switched from a new facility to an existing facility. Your first steps are to form a committee. You're going to do the same thing, though. You're going to make a feasibility study. What are your threats? What are your potential losses of revenue? What are your potential gains for revenue? And your needs analysis, okay? Second steps, create your operational plan, remodel and or upgrade, right? So are you going to repaint? You're going to break down walls. You're going to re-turf, re-floor, all of those type of things. And finalize the design and the decor that you would want in your facility. And your final steps would be the arrangement of your equipment in the facility, create employee duties and schedule, and then of course hire and keep your staff just like before. So there's a lot less that goes into something that's modifying an existing facility if the structure is sound, right? So that's kind of like any sort of real estate development when you think about it. If you wanted to even open a bar or a restaurant, is the infrastructure sound? Is there any threats to it being functional or not being within code, or is it a health hazard violation, right? So sometimes if you have a nice big area that you come across a real estate property, it's easier to renovate sometimes than it is to build from scratch. But again, you have to make sure all these other things are viable. All right, so when you assess your athletic program needs, you need these are answers that you just need to kind of pontificate on. How many athletes are going to be using this facility, right? So is it mainly just for teams, or is it for everyone? Is it teams and everyone, general public teams, specific sport training one-on-one sessions? Those are things you need to ask yourself. Okay, next would be, what are the training goals for the athletes, the coaches, and administration? What are the demographics of the athletes? What will the training experience of the athletes be? How will the athletes be scheduled, right? Is it, again, we go back to teams, individuals, the general public, how are things going to be scheduled? You want the flow of your schedule to be ideal as well, because if you don't have that set and you have too many people coming in at once and schedules get crossed, it can be construed as very disorganized, and that will kind of deter people away. So the more organized you are, and the more fluid things move, not just the placement of your equipment and the flow of the facility, it needs to be, your staff needs to be, educated and this and that and like confident in what they're doing. So then people will want to come to your facility. What equipment needs to be repaired or modified? These are all things that you need to keep asking yourself constantly. Okay, So the location. So let's talk about continuing the design. The strength and conditioning facility should ideally be located on the ground floor away from offices and classrooms. Okay. So for example, if you were doing a large facility or you were building in a facility that had offices and classrooms, it really needs to be on the first floor and away, because you want to be able to, depending on who you're training, you want to be able to exercise. And if you drop the weights, if you're doing Olympic lifts or certain things like that, or power lifts, you might be dropping the weight and so forth. You don't want it to be a distraction to the offices, okay? And it's important to have it on the ground floor, because weights banging or people running or squeaking above the floors above, it's just really, really inconvenient, and you're going to run into a lot more issues than you would for versus having it on the ground floor. Supervision location. This should be a central location in the facility with a clear line of sight and mirrors, providing opportunity to look out and see everyone, right? So if you own the building, or you're running it, you should be able to kind of have an overview and watch everything that's kind of going on. So you don't want to be an enclosed space. You can have an office, off to the side if you need to get some work done. But for the managers and owners, should always have a space with either plexiglass or something where they can kind of oversee everything. So you have a watch on your facility, make sure everything's being done properly. And when we talk about access, facilities should be accessible to persons with disabilities with either a ramp or a wheelchair lift for any change in height exceeding 0.5 inches. So these are some of the specifics that, the NSCA set up these guidelines and strength and conditioning facilities need to follow. So these are just some things that you should have, just to keep in mind. Obviously, it needs to be wheelchair accessible. A ramp should run 12 inches for every 1 inch rise, So those are basic standards, okay? And then steps should have a rough strip on the edge to prevent people from falling, right? So that actually makes sense, because if you're leaving the facility or going up and down, and let's just say it's raining or snowing or slippery, having a grip type of material on there will help aid in the decrease of slips and falls, which again, you don't want, because you don't want to be liable for that. Ceiling height should be high enough for jumping or explosive activities. So vertical jump activities, plyometric activities, jumping off the box. So you want the ceilings to be pretty high, okay? And that's also something that is attractive when you see high ceilings, so if you don't feel so trapped when you're exercising, it kind of creates this nice open atmosphere. A recommended height is at least 12 to 14 feet, which should give enough clearance to allow perform these, but sometimes nice high ceilings, look nice and are more realistic. Flooring, the most common floor is rubber flooring, and it's got to be antifungal carpet. If you're doing carpet, another option is indoor turf, right? So we talked about that section for agility training, sport-specific training. A lot of places have indoor turf, so make sure you have that section set. Ideally, weightlifting platforms should be made of wood, right? That provides a sturdy, smooth surface that can help prevent slipping or shoes getting caught. Those of you who have lifted on platforms, most of them you will see are wood, right? And it's for that reason. It's really not for aesthetics, so to speak. It's really for your safety and not to slip as much when you're lifting. And think about when you're lifting really heavy weights. If you're lifting really heavy weights, and you slip and fall with that weight, you could become very injured. So there's a reason that material is on different platforms. Okay. So the last thing before we head into the next section of this lecture and to the next video will be the environmental factors. The facility's lighting should include artificial and natural light. The light should be between, this many lumens, 50 and 100 lumens, depending on the height of the ceiling. Facility needs to maintain comfortable temperature between 68 and 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Relative humidity should not exceed 60%. If you've ever, in our human performance lab, if you take a look, I have humidity and temperature sensors in both the main area as well as the bod pod room. And I make sure, and I am on facilities almost every single day to make sure if that drops below 68 degrees, they're getting a message or a call from me. Same with if the relative humidity goes up towards 55, 60%, they're getting a call from me because I know it's going to go higher. So they always, I'm always making sure to maintain our equipment as well as, keep the viability of our, like I said, of our equipment, metabolic systems, all of these other things such as, and then even our weights, right? So you don't want to have too much moisture in the air that can start to wear away at the equipment. All right. So then we will head on to the next video.